my why question is, why do people abuse animals? So my main idea, or the main purpose behind my why question is because I want to understand why people abuse animals, whether it's mentally, because of anger, or anything else. So my personal story is that I volunteer at PAWS, and I used to spend most of my time there. And there was one day when I came in, and there was these two guys that came in, and they wanted to look at potential dogs to adopt. And it's like, that's normal for like people to come in and ask me like, oh, I'm looking for this type of dog or so-and-so. But before, we used to do surveys, so each person would have a card for like what certain breed or something that they would want. But they changed the system, so then they would just come and ask me questions. So they would ask me, the main two breeds that they wanted was a Rottweiler and a Pit Bull. And they were very specific about what type of dog they wanted, like the way it acted. They wanted one with a bite history, one that wasn't able to, well, one that was not so young but not so old, to the point where they could like train it right away. And then they would just ask me so many bizarre questions and ask me like, oh, have they ever been through anything, and just like weird questions. So then I went to one of the head volunteers, because since I'm level 1, I don't handle like the big dogs, like the dogs that are like with the bite history and like the ones that first come in. So I help out the ones that have been there for a while. And then I told them about it because I thought it was really bizarre how they were just asking me all those questions, and they weren't really looking at any other dogs, just like the main big ones. And then I had realized that they wanted a dog for dog fighting. So then when I went to go talk to one of the head volunteers, they went to go talk to them and then ask them the same questions as I did, and then they would tell them, and then they realized that they wanted a dog for dog fighting. So they escorted them out and had them leave. And I thought it was really like rude, the fact that they would come into a place like PAWS, where they are really into like taking care of dogs and cats and just like having a good environment for them. So they don't have them in like cages like regular shelters will. They have them in like rooms, and they're compared with other dogs that are similar to like their traits and similar to like the things that they like to do. If they like to play with toys, if they like certain things in their room. And then I just thought it was very like just rude, the fact that they would come in and like into an environment that helps them, and looking for an animal that's gonna be used for dog fighting, just abuse and stuff. There are two types of cruelty, but So the first one is active cruelty, and it is intended to harm an animal, creating immediate pain and suffering. So it's basically like harmful, like abuse, like physically, like hurting them and just like, like pushing them away or anything. So there was one case where this lady was upset at her dog because I guess he ate the goldfish, and she got mad, and she just stuck him into the washing machine and left him there for 10 minutes and set the temperature to boil, and just left him there until he was like completely like just gone. And when they had took him out, they realized that he was fighting for his life, so all his like claws and stuff were like gone. Passive cruelty is the same thing, intended to harm an animal, creating immediate pain and suffering, but it is prolonged. So let's say like you're not giving your dog or your pet the care that it wants, so you're keeping them on a short leash. You're not giving them the food that they need, and they'll like keep them in poor shelter. So then it'll be like long term, so like all the lack of attention and not giving them like what they need, taking them out for a walk, just like little things like that can prolong like such like an impact to the animal, to the point where it could suffer, and it'll just be like that to the point where you just like end up dying and getting sick. Next. These are stories that I found, and I think it's Augie or Udi's story. So at 10 weeks old, he was tied to a stake and used as bait for a pit bull, and he was also used for dog fighting too. So that's why he doesn't have his ear, because his left side of his face was completely torn, and they had to kind of reconstruct it and reconstruct his jaw because they had completely like crushed his jaw to like pieces. And then Mama J, she was used as bait dog for a dog fighting ring. She was bred relentlessly, and then she had rope burns on her neck, so over and over again you could see like they would heal, and then they would like constantly just be there, so it left a scar. And then that's why she has the thing like around her. She has like what do you call it, like a bandana around, because they don't, I guess they don't want to be reminded by it. And then scars were covered all over her body, and her teeth were removed by so she wouldn't fight back for her life. So then they just constantly like kept her like that, and as a small and as a baby she spent there. They were both eventually saved by the ASPCA, so they help out animals in need. So those that are like either beaten or on the street or anything, they'll just help them out. And then they were both called in by two civilians that saw the pain they were going through. So my solution. So you could see like signs of neglect. So let's say you're just like passing by, and it's like, but you have to see it constantly. It's not just like a one thing, like, oh, you see them like tied into like a short like leash, like there may be a reason for it. Or like if you see it constantly, then that's when you realize like this is like they're neglecting the dog or a pet. So starvation, mange is when you see like a whole bunch of like larvae and just like their fur is not like kept well. So no shelter, keeping them like outside all the time, like not giving them, like letting them inside or in like somewhere warm. So like if it's raining, they'll leave them outside. Collar too tight, so you'll obviously notice that. And then lack of grooming, again with like mange. And then next slide. And then you could also contact a local animal shelter. So PAWS is a great way because a great place to go to, because they'll call somebody else like all in the area, so they know like certain shelters that will help them out. Because there's some shelters that will have a dog come in, but let's say they'll sneeze or something, the next day you won't see them anymore because they want to keep them coming in and out because of the overpopulation in shelters. So PAWS is a great way because they won't do that. They'll either put them in their other locations that they have. So they have one in Little Village, and they have one in Lakeshore, and then over here in Lincoln Park. So I come over here, and it's just like a great way to like, if you see anything like going on, any cruelty or all that, you can call them and they'll send you, they'll either send somebody to help out or they'll just like come